Hi, and welcome back to Purple Collar Life. In today's video, we're talking about the Ford 8N tractor. This is actually a viewer request video. I got an email last night about the Ford 8N tractor. Let's talk about what the question was and what the answer is. So if you're new to the channel, before we even get started here, I'd appreciate if you'd consider clicking that like button. This video and lots of our videos are about using our equipment here to maintain our property here in Northwest Pennsylvania, and our mix of white-collar day jobs and blue-collar evening activities and property ownership requirements. So we do a lot of tractors, chainsaws, firewood, homestead maintenance here in Pennsylvania. So I got an email last night from Cindy, and she asked, can you explain to me how you find out how much gas is in the tank? There is no fuel gauge, and I can look down in the tank, but I'm short and can't see. I saw that you put a paint stirrer type of stick down in the tank. Is there a formula for the gas on the stick to know how many gallons of gas you have in the tank? I made marks on the side of a stick based on the measuring tape, so I have 12 marks on the stick. I don't know how many gallons of gas the tank will hold. My husband also told me that there's a small amount under the main tank that holds enough gas to get back from the field if I should use all the gas. All right, so Cindy, I responded to your email last night and hopefully the answer helped, but I thought if you had that question, maybe there are others who have the same question about fuel, capacity, and use in a Ford 8N, 2N, 9N, Jubilee, Workmaster, all these older Ford tractors, or even any of the older other brand farm tractors. The situation is probably similar. Most of these tractors do not have a fuel gauge. Now, by the time you got to the Workmaster, like our 641, there was a fuel gauge. Ours works on the 641, but it's not 100% accurate. So let me talk you through what my thoughts are on fuel use and how to judge how much gas you have, how much gas you're going to use, and then at the end of the video, 3 tips to improve your fuel economy on a Ford tractor like this if you're using it for finish mowing or brush hogging or an activity that uses that PTO power, which obviously is going to use more fuel than if you're just driving up and down the driveway. So if you're new to the channel, this is our 1948 Ford 8N. This tractor has been here on the homestead property since new. It was actually one of 2 Ford 8N tractors that are still in this area from maintaining the family homestead all those years ago. The other one is a 1952 Ford 8N. But with either one of them, when you open the hood, the fuel tank is here. The Ford 8N, 2N, and 9N all have a 10-gallon fuel tank. So if you were curious how many gallons are held in the fuel tank, if it is an original or an aftermarket regular size fuel tank for these tractors, it should be a 10-gallon tank. We'll take the cap off here. And Cindy was right. Here in the toolbox, we keep a stick similar size to a paint stirrer, but you can see we do have only one marking on it. This mark, and I'll explain to you why that mark is important, but we do use the stick, dip it down into the tank, and then we can see how much fuel we have in the tank. And you can see that mark on the stick. Now on the other Ford tractor that we had, the 1952, in the toolbox was actually a depth wrench that was used for sitting the plow when you were plowing with the tractor. But a lot of people used that depth wrench to also gauge how much fuel was left. Now the indicators on the wrench, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, didn't have anything to do with how many gallons were in the tank. They were, again, for the depth of setting the plow. But you could still use the wrench as a basic indicator for how much fuel is in the tank. Now I have seen some aftermarket caps that you can buy that would tell you how much fuel is in the tank roughly. As the tractor sits, obviously at an incline or a decline, that's not going to be a super good indicator, but at least at a glance you have some idea if your tank is empty, about half full, or full. We've always maintained this original cap, so there is no indicator on the majority of these old Ford tractors. Put the stick back in the toolbox and close the lid. Now, like Cindy said, some people do make 1-inch markings on a paint stirrer or other stick, dip them down in the tank, and that tells them exactly how much fuel is in the tank. I wrote this down because I knew I wouldn't remember. So this is a 10-gallon tank. If you stick the paint stirrer in and you have 1 inch up from the bottom, that's about 1 gallon of gas. 2 inches up is about 3 gallons of gas. 3.5 inches up is about 4 gallons of gas. 4.25 inches up is about 5 gallons of gas. 5 inches up is about 6 gallons of gas. 6 inches up on the stick is about 8 gallons of gas. And if on that stick you're reading just over 8 inches, that's a full tank at 10 gallons of gas. Now, I showed you that on our stick we have this line just a little bit more than 1 inch above the tank. That has to do with the sediment bowl and how it screws up into the fuel tank right here. So this sediment bowl is screwed into the bottom of the gas tank, and it has a stub that sticks just a little bit more than 1 inch up into the tank. That stub has a screen around it. If you saw when I first started the tractor, I turned this knob 2 times. So see, full is at the top, 1 full turn, 2 full turns. So the main tank, like it says here on the instructions of the knob, main is 2 turns. That allows fuel to come down over top of the stub and into the sediment bowl, where it then is fed into the carburetor and runs your engine. Now, we use that mark on our stick because we've found with this tractor, actually with all the Ford tractors I've owned, once the fuel gets below that level, the tractor doesn't run great because there is sediment at the bottom of the tank, possibly that screen could be clogged. There is actually a reserve, so you see here, reserve is written on this knob. So after those first 2 turns, if you were running and you ran out of fuel, you could keep turning this all the way open, and that opens the reserve tank. That allows fuel to flow through a lower hole in this stub. That means the fuel has to come through that screen, and in our case, and probably the case of most old tractors, that screen is coated with debris and the fuel can't really get through it very well. So we've found that with this tractor, we always want to make sure we're above that mark on our stick, which means we can always run the tractor without using the reserve. What the reserve is doing is just letting that last about inch of fuel come through the screen, into the sediment bowl, and into the carburetor. But like I said, on our tractor and most other ones, that screen's usually clogged, so there really is no reserve once that screen is clogged. So Cindy's husband is correct. There is reserve capacity, at least there was when these tractors were new. A lot of them over time, that reserve capacity is actually gone because that screen is clogged with debris and dirt over 70 years of use. So my suggestion is always, before I take this Ford tractor out, I stick that stick down into the fuel tank, make sure that I have enough fuel above that line to do whatever activity I'm doing. Now let's talk about how much fuel it uses to do something like finish mowing or brush hogging with this tractor. How much fuel you use will really depend on what activity you're doing with the tractor. If you're driving up and down the driveway, it doesn't use that much gas going down to get the mail. It does use a lot more gas though when you're running something off the PTO, like a brush hog or a finish mower. Because that's using more of the horsepower, using more of the gas. You're at a higher throttle to keep those RPMs up, to keep the PTO spinning fast enough to do that mowing or brush hogging. So what I've found with both the Ford 8N and my Ford Workmaster is I use somewhere between 2 to 2.5 gallons of gas per hour that I'm doing brush hogging or mowing with these machines. I recently heard from someone who said they use 10 gallons of gas in 2 hours brush hogging with their machine. And that makes me think that either they're really going through some really high and thick stuff, or they've got some ways that they could improve the efficiency of the machine. So let me give you 3 tips on how to improve the fuel efficiency of your old farm tractor like this one. So tip number 1 is a tune-up. This is going to give you better horsepower. It's going to make the engine run better. You're going to change out those spark plugs, replace the points, check the distributor cap, adjust the carburetor if necessary. Those are all things that will help the engine run more efficiently so you're not wasting fuel. Tip number 2 has to do with the thing that you're operating behind the machine using that PTO horsepower. The best way to get efficiency is to make sure that your blades are sharp, everything is greased properly, and you're using an implement that is the right size for the machine. So for this Ford 8N tractor, this 5-foot finish mower or a 5-foot brush hog is as big as I would go on these machines. With the Ford Workmaster or a Jubilee, you've got a little bit more horsepower. You might be able to get away with a 6-foot finish mower or a 6-foot brush hog, depending on the area that you need to clear. If it is really thick, heavy stuff, I'd still stick with the 5-foot. If it's mostly clear fields and you're only cutting grass that's, 4 inches tall, then yeah, the 6-foot is probably just fine. But if you're overtaxing a machine like this Ford 8N with a 6-foot brush hog going through thick stuff, that's not only going to use more fuel, but it's also going to give more wear and tear to the tractor because you're going beyond its capabilities. The last thing I want to mention when we're talking about brush hogging or mowing using these Ford 8N, 2N, or 9N tractors with a 3-point implement is this overrunning clutch. This is extremely important, and I mentioned this in our brush hogging video, which I'll leave a link to up above and in the description. That video will teach you a little bit more about how to properly mow or use a brush hog behind the Ford tractor. But the overrunning clutch allows the PTO to spin without the transmission spinning. So without this overrunning clutch, if you've got that big flywheel on the brush hog running and you need to stop quickly, as long as that flywheel still has momentum, it's actually going to push the transmission to keep going forward. As you probably wanted to stop when you push the clutch in, you'll still move forward even after you push the clutch in. The overrunning clutch on the PTO allows you to push the clutch in. The tractor can come to a stop while the momentum of the brush hog or the finish mower continues, and that overrunning clutch just absorbs that momentum without driving the transmission forward. So a very important safety thing to have when you're using a PTO implement on the 3-point hitch of one of these old farm tractors. Cindy, I want to thank you for the email and the video idea. I really appreciate it. If others of you have questions about these old Ford tractors and it's something I can help you with, I'm happy to help. Leave a comment down below with your question. If it's something I can help you with, I'm happy to answer it in the comments down below. And other people might also be able to help by leaving answers to those questions down below. So it really is a community of people to help each other out here on YouTube. And reading through the comments usually gives you a lot of great information. Thanks for watching. If you found this video informative and entertaining, please give us a big thumbs up. Don't forget to leave those comments down below. And if you know someone who might benefit from this information, you can click the share button and share this video with them. Thanks for watching. We always appreciate the support. Every single time you click that like button, leave a comment, it helps the video get promoted to a larger audience, and that helps our channel grow. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to click that subscribe button. We appreciate it. We love that you follow along here with our purple collar life in Northwest Pennsylvania.